Welcome to the 5am podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and some waves in their callings. Today, we are thrilled to have a trailblazer in the tech industry. Our guest is not just a tech entrepreneur, she's also a multifaceted powerhouse who's redefining what it means to be a leader in today's rapidly evolving business landscape. Now, she's based in Idaho, which is a state that's just beginning to make its mark in tech. And Brittany has carved her own path in an industry often dominated by Silicon Valley narratives and maybe ideology too. So she's the founder of Vision, and she's been navigating the world of luxury, information, sustainability, and technology, all while working to change conventional ideas about funding and growth. Our guest brings a fresh voice as well as out-of-the-box thinking that sometimes is all too rare towards business issues today. Now, she's also a jiu-jitsu grappler, which we'll get into the martial arts conversation for sure. She's a car enthusiast and, who wouldn't, loves fashion. So if you think back to our friend Jacopo from Italy, fashion lovers have something going on. So she's also proving that success in tech doesn't mean fitting into a predetermined mold. Now, before we roll that intro, we're going to ask you to share this and give us a like and a subscribe. If you're watching on the YouTubes, we'd like that. And we're going to share Brittany's contact information also so you can show her some social media love, because everyone loves that. Now, as many of you are going to love this conversation, what we'd love for you to do is give 5am podcast a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. And then if you really want to show us some love and appreciation, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and throw a few virtual bills into the barrel. Now, let's roll that intro. Brittany Hansen, welcome to the 5am podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have a great conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, what you missed out on, so we'll have to resurrect this conversation. We were talking about martial arts and jiu-jitsu, and there's a whole lot of stuff we want to talk about today. But seeing as how I opened up that can of worms, let's talk about what principles we can take from the world of martial arts and put them into business.
I think there are so many. What comes to the top of mind, just because, I went this morning and got the living daylights beat out of me, is just that ability to learn hard lessons and get up and do it again. That's definitely one. And we talked earlier about just respect, a level of respect and understanding for what the people who have gone before you have done, and really respecting that. I loved your story about bowing to the mat.
It's critical, and it's not worship or anything like that. It's just understanding, in my mind anyway, it's understanding who came before us. We live in such a short timeline on this earth, and to think of all those senseis or other people that have been on that mat or had a connection to building it up, and they deserve that honor and respect. Almost like mentors. Can you get into maybe your mindset on being that kind of business leader that pays the respect, maybe up and down the ladder?
Absolutely. I love that you talk about our senseis as mentors. That's very much what they function as. And I have been so blessed to have mentors who went before me. My co-founder is very much my mentor. Her name is Andrea Sorensen. And I do think the best way to mentor is to learn from people who went before you, and then to take that learning that they were blessed with, that they blessed you with, to put it into all of the lessons that you've learned, and then to continue to distribute it down the line. That's how we give people and the knowledge that they've come up with the kind of legacy that they deserve. That's how we share blessings.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to give, and to never, if we're on the receiving end, to never be upset that your mentor or the person above you can't give you what you're asking for. Because if they don't have it, they can never give it to you. And it's up to us to realize people's capacities and what they actually have that we can focus on to receive. And what are some of the lessons maybe that you've learned just in starting Vision?
So, my goodness, that's so many lessons. I feel like there's something every day that I have learned. One of my favorite things that actually was a mentor of ours, he was our CXO for quite a while. He said to us, stop trying to be what you aren't and lean into what you are.
Yeah.
We have sort of a unique role in being female founders in the tech industry. And because both of us are so comfortable in a man's world and have spent a lot of time there, our initial inclination was to lean hard into that. And he said, no, what is important about you is the touch that you add to things. And that is distinctly feminine. Lean into that and be proud of who you are rather than trying to be something different.
Yes. Now, this could really ruffle some feathers, but it's almost like feminism that we saw growing up and that came before our generation. It almost disempowered women because to me, it felt like they were saying, you have to crash into this man's world and dominate. But it's almost like you want to wear like the silver gloves or the kid leather gloves and add that touch that only a woman can add. And you probably came across some things like that because one of the things that you do is Vision kind of curates information. Can you get into that a little bit?
We do. So, and like you said, our messaging is so unique. I love how you put that. So really, we started Vision because we felt like communication is broken. And most people wouldn't argue with that. We don't know how to communicate well. So we help companies on our platform to curate the kind of information that their customers actually want from them in the moments that they want it. I know, most of us know when you're scrolling through Instagram, I don't want your ads. When I'm walking through the mall, I don't want to get shouted at by someone to be like, pay attention to me right now. I want the information available to me when I am ready for it. And that's really what the kind of experience that we're designing, we call it a phygital experience because it's physical and digital. It's a marriage of those two things. And it's the ability to be there when your customers want you, but not be there when they specifically do not.
Yes.
And deliver the right information at the right time.
Yeah. So was this idea actually kind of birthed when you being a stay-at-home mom and you knew that was your calling for that period of time? Can you talk about that transition and how that experience actually was like the fires that forged what you have now?
Absolutely. So, I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 13 years of my kids' lives. And my two oldest boys both have autism. They both experience autism and both have genetic disorders. So for a good portion of the beginning of their lives, we were in therapy 5-6 times a week. We were doing all the things. I felt very much called to be their mother. They're incredible young men. And then about the age of 12 and 13, they started to get, much more self-dependent, and my girls were doing well. And my sister-in-law and I had an experience where we saw a family trying to interact in the same way that we were at a zoo. As funny as that sounds, realized that they couldn't read the signage because they spoke another language. They couldn't converse with anyone. Like, there has to be an easy way to fix that. And we ended up looking into it and found that there was indeed not an easy way to fix that. So when we originally started, we started with the idea that you can't make good choices without the best information. And if the information is not in your language, it doesn't matter how good it is.
Right. And how thorough.
So we really have felt called to this. It took something very special to take me out of my home and put me in a place where I'd never been before. I was a psychology major the first time I went to college. When I went back and finished, I got a degree in marketing. Had you told me 10 years ago I was going to end up with a career in tech, I would have laughed at you. But there have been an untold number of experiences that have told us we are exactly where we are supposed to be.
Yeah, that's great. Now, one of the things that you and I talked about before that your company is actually doing is your is it called buyer's peace of mind?
You're talking about our buyer-led policy?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I think what you're referring to is our buyer-led process, which is around that idea that typical advertising is very intrusive, and instead marketing should be intuitive.
Yeah.
Your customer scans a code, they get information in their language when they're ready to have it and when they're ready to share it. It's about helping customers become evangelists on their own.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like creating raving fans, that
Mhm.
old book from the past. So, how much of your experience as a mom with two autistic boys factored into this technology and this interface between consumer and advertiser?
More than maybe you would think.
Yeah.
As two boys who really struggle with communication,
Oh,
I understood just how important it was that people have the best information. Um, I was incredibly passionate about it, and I still am. And part of that is because of the experience that we had in the medical community trying to get my son, trying to understand what was happening with him before we knew what his genetic condition was.
wow.
There was no good information out there. When I went to the internet, what I found was there were some well-meaning people who could speak kind of to their interests in it. There were not very many doctors who could speak about it. And then there were a whole bunch of people who were self-diagnosed who had really, really bad information that would have harmed my child. And I didn't have a good way of telling the difference between what was good and what was bad. And to make matters worse, I mean, we have the most amazing neurologist for my son, but this is a rare enough condition that when he was diagnosed, the neurologist actually looked at me and said, "This is the first time I've come across this in my career, and it's probably going to be the only time we will learn about this together."
Wow.
So information was important, but knowing that some of it was bad was terrifying.
Yeah.
So I really, information is important. And then there's been so many other things like learning how to lead a team. That came more naturally because I know how to lead a family with a co-founder, right? Because I have my husband there. Knowing how to communicate, understanding even finances is such a, an integral part of a family that bleeds over into business. There's actually many more parallels there than someone might think.
Now, seeing as how you mentioned financing, your company actually kind of went a different non-traditional route for fundraising. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We did. We felt really strongly in the beginning that if we went through angel investors, they would not only take a good portion of the company, but they would tell us how it needed to be run.
Yeah.
And if we really felt, which we did, inspired to do this business, then we needed the freedom to be able to move as necessary. So we bootstrapped for a good long time. And then we have 80 private investors who have all come on, and all of whom we have personal relationships with, who share in our vision so that we can move it forward in the way it's supposed to be moved forward.
Right. Wow, that sounds like responsibility and respect is a big deal in your company. And this brings us back to the conversation that you and I were having before about how you bow before you enter the dojo out of respect for what has been there before and all those moving parts that come into that relationship. Can you talk about how, if somebody else is looking to start something and they've been looking at the usual suspects, let's say, for financing, how did you go about building those bridges with your now 80 investors?
So a lot of that initially was my co-founder. I was still working limited hours, but as we've continued throughout the years, it has been a mix of being blessed and guided, and also being able to really watch and understand people. There is no shortage of money on this planet. Lots of people have money. What you need as you seek to start a business is people you are not afraid to partner with and who will build and understand what you are doing. Um, that can be harder to find. And what that looks like is unfortunately having to go a little slower. It means not taking the fast money, not taking the easy money, not selling a good portion of your business. It means taking the time to create friendships, to create mentorships, and then seeing if someone is really who you want as part of this journey with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good relationship and advice in itself. Can you share then, kind of in line with this, was there an instance where maybe tradition clashed with the innovation that you saw was possible?
Yes, lots of times. Maybe earliest on, I got some really mixed feedback from some family members about leaving my home to work in a professional context. And that was tough. That was something where I really had to hit my knees and have some conversations about whether or not I was doing the right thing. And then there's other more business type pieces that women get less than 2% of funding in the
Is that right?
tech arena. Wow. Less than 2, yeah. And people expect you to be sort of a specific way until you learn to lean into who you are, right? As we talked about before. And then it was really interesting in the beginning, because we started being sort of language tech, and we had a lot of people say to us, that's a really nice thing to have, but it's not really that important. And if people are going to be in this country, they should learn to speak English.
Yeah.
Which we thought was really interesting. We thought, being part of a culture is important, but how will you learn how to infuse into our culture if you have no access to the best information in our culture? And we had to take on the tone of being sort of inviting and loving, and everybody can come and be a part of things in a way that not everybody was always comfortable with.
Yeah. So was there some people who were really in your corner at the start of all this that really you look back and say, wow, those two really propelled me to where I am? Can you talk about that relationship?
We have had no shortage of those. And I say we because my co-founder and I have been in it since the beginning. My husband has been nothing short of amazing through this entire thing. I needed him on board if I was going to do this, and we were going to have to do more teamwork at night and really do the parenting thing together. He's been amazing. We've also had, and I'm always hesitant to throw out names because I don't want it to sound like name dropping, but our CXO, when he came on, was unreal and just had the years and the experience to really coach us. Never once did he say, you're doing it wrong, but he would ask all of the questions so that we would decide, oh, are we doing it wrong?
Nice.
And he would, maybe you want to think about doing it this other way.
Yeah.
And that was invaluable to us. And then there's a third member of our founding team. His name is John Waite. And we brought him on partially because we were women in tech and we knew that we weren't getting the forward motion that we needed just as women. But we brought him on because my co-founder had some experience with him in a prior work position. And he has been able to just balance everything out. Wow. It's the 3 personalities are just the perfect triangle. And we all have faith and we're all able to bond on that and really run this business together. It's amazing.
That's good.
It's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, personalities make the difference. And it's always unfortunate when you hear the horror stories of, oh, you can't be in a partnership. I mean, you just have to go it alone and bootstrap yourself and, just expect the worst from people. But there's a lot of patience. Maybe you could talk about that, the patience that's required or the research that's required, that you just don't hop into the first financier relationship or some other business partnership. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So research is always going to be your best friend as you decide on financing. Debt is a big, scary word, and it's a big, scary word for a reason. Yes, there are small business loans out there, and you can look into those, and some of those are great options. Make sure that you're doing your research. as you look for investors, make sure that you're looking for people who have something else to offer you. So, if you've ever watched Shark Tank, when a shark ends up pitching themselves, they'll say, well, I have ties in this industry, or I have a way that I can help you. The things that we look for are, how will this person contribute on more than a financial level? So do they have experience here? Do they have ties here? What do they know that we don't know? So that they want to jump in and give us their money, but so much more valuable oftentimes is their wisdom. What can they share with us so that we can be mutually beneficial, so that we can have a peer mentoring relationship? And then you have to be fully transparent with people. Nobody should ever jump into your business thinking this is a slam dunk. There's no risk here. I don't need to be a part of this. That should never happen. People should be well aware. You have to be as transparent as you're hoping they are. Open your books. Let them see it. Talk about the mistakes that you've made, because those are really valuable. Otherwise, if you talk about your mistakes and learn from them, it's tuition, right? You paid tuition to learn something. If you hide them and you ignore them, now there's just a throwaway waste of time and money. So transparency on both sides, and to some degree, likability. And when I say that, I don't mean that you have to be best friends with everyone, but you do have to be able to have a real conversation and a real relationship with them. If you can't stand that person, you're not going to take their advice. They're going to think you're an idiot. That's not what you need.
Exactly. And I often thought of the Mark Twain quote that said, it's better to have people think you're a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. But you want to find those leaders who can come alongside you and say, I totally get it. You need to learn a few things, and I want to actually help you along together. And people like that are diamonds for others who want to start a legacy of some kind. Now, I want to ask you, thinking back as you started, and you might even still come into contact with some misconceptions, but what was your biggest misconception starting out, and how did you navigate that?
There's been several along the way. I feel like that's always my answer for you right now. It's like, which one would you like to talk about? Maybe the biggest one was that family-run businesses won't be okay. My co-founder is my sister, my sister-in-law. I'm married to her brother. And we were cautioned so many times, this is going to destroy you. And we're all familiar with the horror stories, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But when everybody in a situation can remember that this business is not about you, and it's not about your ego, and it's not about, bullet points on your resume or anything else, and we're all working towards one shared goal.
Wow.
Actually, family is a really fantastic thing, because I don't choose ever the option to just walk away. Those relationships are important to me. If this business won and my relationship with my sister-in-law was ruined, I would have failed. So there is a misconception that it's always bad to do business with family, but for sure, do your research beforehand and know what you're getting into, because those dynamics do shift. It is hard. Everybody is tired, and everybody is stretched, and everybody is doing their best, and it's not enough. You better make sure you know who people are before you get into business with them.
Yeah. Now, I have kind of an unrelated but related question of fostering a culture of innovation and risk-taking in your company, yet ensuring that there's that foundation is built and you're leaving room for stability and growth.
Such a fine line to walk. What we've found sort of again and again is it has to be okay for people to make a mistake. And that's totally fine in our industry and especially in our business, as long as when that mistake has been made, we're all able to talk about it. You don't need to point fingers if somebody is aware of what they've done. Like, it's just like, okay, this happened. Where do we go from here? And once employees see that happen a few times, all of a sudden they're like, it is safe to take this risk. That is something that I feel okay with. By nature, we're a very disruptive company, so we expect to have that kind of mindset. But if you want that, and I do think most companies do, you have to make it okay for people to mess up.
Right.
and then just recover really quickly.
Yes. Yeah. We, speaking of personalities, before we hit the record button, we were actually talking about who the bad guy actually was in Karate Kid. And so you have this, I can't remember who Ralph Macchio played, what his character name was, but doesn't matter. We all know. And it's this new kid that shows up and he thinks he's going to be amazeballs and everyone's going to love him. And he starts kicking over people's apple carts and being self-centered. Everyone knows the world's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? But having that family dynamic of knowing what's in it for me is not actually the question to be asked. How do you have a collective self-interest?
And I really think it comes back to that. So much of it is personality, right? To be able to look at someone and know, like, does this person have so much pride that if I make a mistake, they're going to feel like it reflects badly on them, and so I'm going to get punished twice?
Yeah, right.
Does this person understand other people's weaknesses? Are they keenly aware of their own? And are they ready and willing to work on them? Because that's the other thing, is just being able to know when you messed up, and hopefully you're the one to apologize first. So much of it I would attribute to their family culture, which, you know, they've always had a mentality of sort of fail fast and then succeed together, which I love so much. And it's built into our company now. The employees that we bring in are entrepreneurs. They understand that this business doesn't belong to us. It belongs to them. It belongs to the people, right? So this is how we distribute things. And the bad guy is always the one who has the I statement to make when it should be we.
Yes,
it's
right.
always we.
Yeah.
If it's not we, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a CEO once who had said, if you're not here for the company's benefit, just leave now. And I was kind of always taken aback by that, because I had mentors and leaders that I worked with that were like, you know, you might not be on the same path as me, Michael, but how can I help you while you're working for me in this company to get you where you need to be? That's kind of what I'm picking up from what you're saying about having staff.
Yeah. And I think there's a happy marriage between those two, because I never want to say to someone, like, get out, because when I say what's good for the company, I think inherently people think that means what's good for the people in leadership. That's not what I'm talking about. Exactly. I'm talking about the success of an idea. And when you come here, I do want to help you become a better person. I want you to help me become a better person. Yeah. I have learned things from every single member of our team. And I don't say that in a pedantic way. Really and truly, I am a different person now than I was 8 years ago because of the imprints that these people have left on me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just human nature. That's how we've been created, really, to touch other people's lives. Some people might ebb and flow in and out of our lives. Some people might be there for a sprint. Other people are there for a marathon. But you just know that God has brought all these people because I know I need to learn something, and maybe there's something I can teach. And it's always fascinating how we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Maybe that's not the fascinating part, but being able to listen twice as much as we talk. Can you talk a little bit about maybe that office communication that has developed in your company?
Absolutely. So something that I really love that we started in the very beginning is we're almost a flat company. There's very little layers between leadership and anyone else. All meetings, with the exception of one, are accessible to anyone in the company. They can ask, I would like to attend that meeting. Can I be there? If you really feel like you need to be there, come and be a part of that meeting. You want to talk about finances with us? Great. You want to talk about what we're doing with social media? Cool. Product roadmap. All of that is open. And the only reason we have one closed meeting is because we have to make a space where we can talk about some potentially private issues.
Yes, right.
That's it. And also, everyone within the company has private one-on-ones with our CEO at least once every 3 months.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Because when you put up silos, that's when you say it's not safe to communicate here, or you gotta break through all of this red tape before you can talk to the person that you need to. That stops innovations, it stops ideas, it stops transparency, and it stops communication.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's very good. So you're making it sound very attractive to work for you. So how can our listeners get in touch with you?
If someone wanted to get in touch with us, the easiest way is our website is vision, VIIISION.com. Anyone's welcome to hook up with me on LinkedIn. I'm super active there, and I'm always excited to have people connect with me. And really and truly, if you're a cause-based person, we do some amazing things. We have incredible partnerships. Like, talk to us. If there's not a place for you now, there might be in the future. If you like to be involved in deep meaning and communication, we're a great place for you.
Yeah, that's good. Now, I kind of buried a bit of a headline because one of those issues that you've really helped out with is like child and human trafficking. Can you, as we're getting close to wrapping up, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this.
I would love to. Yeah, one of our most recent contracts is with a company called Justice U, who works to stop human trafficking. Anytime there are 50 million souls who are touched by human trafficking, 1 million in the United States. Of those, 90% are seen by a healthcare professional while they're being trafficked, and less than 1% are spotted. So we were able to, with them, build a system to help healthcare workers identify and help those who are being trafficked in a safe way, in a HIPAA compliant way. But they're on the front lines and they needed that education. It's so close to my heart. And if you're not interested in Vision, that's okay. But do go check out Justice U and the changes that they are making. It's unreal.
That's wonderful. What a way to end off this delightful conversation. There's just, I'm going to ask you one more question, seeing as how we're both here and the interwebs are still connected us. But if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be?
Wow, that was unexpectedly emotional for me. Hold on.
Okay.
It's
I'll get
hard.
the tissues.
Like,
They're here somewhere.
So
I get it.
hard, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the key. It's so hard, but it's going to be okay. And, you have obviously come a long way and gotten over a lot of hurdles. And I am sure that your future is very, very bright, as not just in your own life and your family's life, but the people who you get to impact. And you never know. You could knock on the pearly gates one day and there could be a row of people that were originally trafficked human beings, and they're waiting to say thanks for your work with your clients.
Well, thank you. That's sorry. I hope that we make the impact that we want to make.
Yeah. Well, Brittany, thank you very much for today's episode.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do.
Amen. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners too. Thanks for participating in this conversation with us. I really do feel like these conversations are like in a diner and you are the nosy people behind us listening in on the conversation. And that is totally fine. We love that. In fact, call some other people over, share this with them. Absolutely head over to Brittany's website and of course to 5ampodcast.com. And as you're listening to this, you're listening to a podcast and you have the opportunity to leave a 5-star review. So if you could do that, that would be great. I realize you have a choice between 0 to 5, but the marketing people tell us if it's not a 5, like a 4, it's essentially 0. So if you're leaning towards 4, if you could just give us a little bit more love and click that 5-star, we would appreciate it very much. One other thing we would appreciate if you go over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast, throw a couple virtual bills in the barrel. We would appreciate that as well. And that is it. Until next time, make sure to seize your day. I'm Michael Klassen. Thanks for listening.